Welcome to Let's Chat Finance Season 2 by Homebuyer Centre. Here are some snippets from the episode.
For most people, they're as true as you let those stigmas be. And when you are listening to what's in the news, it can be easy to attach that stigma.
The sheer delight in that customer and those kids meant the whole family were in tears when the broker told them. That's what it's all about for us. You know, everything's very skewed around cost of living pressures, inflation. I think home buyers in reality are probably listening to some of that noise and making decisions in that to either pause that decision, not understanding that they could potentially be in the market today, tomorrow.
Welcome back to Let's Chat Finance by Homebuyer Centre. I'm your host Tash and I'm here with Tyler and Chris. Tyler, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been in the new home construction industry for around about 10 years now, both as a sales consultant, working with buyers directly and also as a sales manager. And currently I'm the Victorian sales manager for Homebuyer Centre.
Chris, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
I've been in finance and brokering coming up 38 years. I think I've seen every type of market condition over that period of time. This has definitely been one of the most challenging, but I still enjoy seeing first time owners get into that first property.
We're unpacking myths around housing affordability and what's really happening in the property market today.
Looking forward to it.
It feels like every second headline is screaming housing crisis, so let's get into what's real and what's not. Tyler, from your perspective, working directly with first home buyers, what are some of the stigmas you hear and do you think these are true? Things like, I'll never own a home, I'll just live with mum and dad forever, or I can just keep renting.
For most people, they're as true as you let those stigmas be. I think most first home buyers, or a lot of first home buyers out there, I should say, maybe don't have all the information that they need to break those stigmas. And when you are listening to what's in the news or reading what's in the newspaper, it can be easy to attach that stigma. And this is why I think it's really important for first home buyers to reach out to the right people, make sure they're getting the right information and really getting the information they need to assess all their options and break that stigma.
I like to always remind people that unfortunately the negative news does sell very well on social media and in the media. So sometimes it feels like it's the end of the world and things are really hard, but it doesn't always have to be that way. Chris, from the finance side, what's your take on these headlines?
Very similar to Tyler. I think, you know, everything's very skewed around cost of living pressures, inflation, but it doesn't take individual circumstances into account of that particular home buyer. I think home buyers in reality are probably listening to some of that noise and making decisions in that to either pause that decision or to actually make other life decisions around travel, etc., not understanding that they could potentially be in the market today, tomorrow. So I find that really frustrating, to be honest.
I feel like there's a lot of FOMO almost, where it's like you need to get it now or it's going to be too expensive, which makes people think, well, I can't afford it right now, so why bother?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's often a lack of that medium to long-term foresight and strategic thinking about how to make this happen. It's, as you said, it's if I can't do it right now, potentially I'm never going to be able to do it. And I think there's a bit of a knowledge gap with the general population around building new homes and the pathway that can be into getting into your first home. It's often, I think, a lot easier to understand purchasing an established property, but potentially that could be limiting the pathways to get in.
Tyler, how does that perception show up when people come to you about building?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time customers, or potential customers, I should say, their nervousness outweighs what their means are. And what I mean when I say that is a lot of people have the means to get into their first home. They just don't know it yet, or they haven't been told the right things, or they haven't been presented with the right options, or potentially their expectations, maybe because of what they see online, or maybe their friends who are a little bit older, maybe in a different life stage, are doing, throws off their mindset and their ability to actually move forward with getting into the market. The perception and the feeling that we get often is nervousness that potentially is unwarranted or doesn't need to be there, unfortunately.
What do you find people are most nervous about?
Purchasing a home is an intimidating experience as it is. Even if you know that you've got the means to do so, it's, most likely for most people, the biggest purchase that they're ever going to make in their lives. So they're already nervous about that. I think for a lot of people, it's that fear of failure, or potentially that fear of trying to do it and then not being able to do it, stops people from taking the first steps and making any action. So I just encourage people, don't be scared of potential failure. At the very least, working with a business like Homebuyer Centre, for example, we can definitely set people on the right path at the very least. But more often than not, they do have the means to actually make it happen.
Yeah, especially I guess when you're talking about the failure, if you're going to home opens every single weekend and you keep putting in offers and getting knocked back, that would be very disheartening. But I guess with building, it's a bit of a different experience because you're not really competing in the same way. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, not in exactly the same way. There's still an element of competition depending on the heat of the market that you're working in. But absolutely, if you work with the right builder partner and the right new homes consultant and the right finance broker to assist you, it's a bit more of a consultative process where we can work together to find the perfect option and put it together, as opposed to you just need to compete for what's available right this second or on that Saturday at 10 a.m.
Chris, what would you say about people who say, oh, I'll have to rent forever because I'll never be able to save for a deposit?
I would probably challenge that to a degree because I think it comes back to what Tyler was saying before. It's about that literacy. You don't know what circumstances that you're in at the moment if you haven't engaged the right trusted advisor. So I'd be really highly recommending that someone reaches out to a broker to understand their pathway now. The amount of people that we see that are surprised that they can progress now, either using banker mum and dad, various other strategies around, government schemes, etc., is incredible. The delight on their face is basically them saying that they can make it achievable now versus later.
Yeah, go see a broker and see what you can borrow and then maybe
100%.
go and actually explore how much homes are costing at the moment to build or to buy.
The first step is to actually understand what you can afford.
Yes.
Yeah, it's no good going shopping if you don't know what your budget is anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think you can be quite surprised when you hear the media headlines and you're like, wow, the median house price is whatever it is, over $1 million in some places. And that can feel really scary, but there are actually affordable options around. Tyler, do you see many young people buying property right now, or is it quite hard for them?
We absolutely do. But there's no sugarcoating the fact that I think the average age of a first home buyer in Australia now is in the low to mid 30s, and 25 years ago, it was sort of mid 20s. So we are seeing that average age increase, and that can be for a variety of reasons we could sit here all day and talk about. However, we do see through Homebuyer Centre many younger people than that coming in and being able to get into the market. It's certainly challenging. Buying a home is challenging. But again, with the right guidance and the right options and the right motivation and expectations, younger people can absolutely make this happen.
Yeah, I see lots of people who talk to me on social media or in comments and stuff like that, and they will say things like, wow, I didn't know there was LMI waivers because I work in healthcare, or I didn't know that my parents could guarantee this amount, or I didn't know about the first home guarantee or whatever it is. So there's so many different ways that people can get into the market, which is really awesome.
There's a lot of terms and phrases that are out there. So again, just important for people to get the right guidance, talk to a finance broker, get an idea of what you can actually do. Without talking to the right people, you're just never going to get all the information because there's so much information out there to digest.
Yeah, and maybe if it's you can't borrow right now, but you will have a plan to borrow in 6 months or 12 months, whatever it is, and you know exactly what your plan is going to be.
Very, very important because that journey starts to get finance fit before we even get that client and that customer to the lender. So, it's all about education to get them ready 3 months out beforehand. So really important, that early engagement.
3 months. How exciting if you thought you couldn't buy and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can buy in 3 months. That would be really great.
It's great. It's the best experience. Seeing the delight on that customer's face is just so rewarding.
Chris, from your side, what are the financial barriers that young people are struggling with the most at the moment?
I think in general, most actually consider the challenges around serviceability. So particularly with the cost of living pressures still around at the moment. But again, there's different ways that can be addressed. So they need to speak to a specialist and a broker on that sort of space to get better suitable advice. The other side is around deposits. Most clients and customers would think that they still require a 20%. That's media-led and potentially from their parents saying that you need 20% in, but there's plenty of different options around that to address. So, there's government schemes that are available. There is the bank of mum and dad. There's rent investing, but there's also the old traditional lending mortgage insurance to do a 95% borrow or over 80% if you had to.
Amazing. Lots of options. And Tyler, on top of that, we're hearing about population growth, construction delays, and the rental squeeze. Do you think these are factors really affecting the market?
They absolutely are. So when we say affecting the market, I'm assuming we're talking a lot about the affordability of the market. To put it really simply, when we're talking about affordability, we're talking about a supply and demand issue. So when you've got an increasing population there's a rental squeeze. So there's more people that potentially would have been renting that are now looking to buy. That's increasing the demand for new housing. And then when we've got construction delays or planning approval delays or infrastructure project holdups, that's not helping with the supply to increase at the same time as the demand. So what that does is it potentially affects the affordability. So yes, absolutely, all those things are having a factor. What I would like to see happen from government is a lot more focus on increasing the supply of housing. So I know in episodes to come, we're probably going to get into government policy and things that they're doing to tackle this. And a lot of that is around helping first home buyers to get in, which is fantastic. And we should always continue to do that. However, it is potentially increasing the demand. So I just want to see a bit more of a focus on, hey, let's increase the supply as well. Let's make it easier for developers to get land on the ground. Let's make it easier for builders to build the homes, and let's make sure we're investing in infrastructure projects to make these places livable as well.
Yeah, definitely. How do house and land packages compare as a pathway for first home buyers compared to buying established?
It's definitely a pathway I encourage everyone to at least consider, and your own unique situation will determine whether that's the right pathway or not. But some huge advantages of building a new home. Number one, first home buyers should feel good by the fact that when they're building a new home, they're actually helping to contribute to more housing supply. So they're actually helping to tackle affordability by choosing to build.
They're fixing the housing crisis. That's exciting.
Step by step, little by little, but yeah, we're taking steps towards that. In addition, for a first home buyer, they still get that feeling of personalization and customization of their new home. So whilst it might not be their forever home, they still get that feeling of choosing their colors, choosing some upgrades, moving into a brand new house that's uniquely theirs, as opposed to inheriting someone else's decisions. In addition to that, they're moving into a new home that's covered by a warranty. So just having that security as a first home owner that, hey, if something does go wrong after I move in, your builder's going to come back and fix it. Having that peace of mind is super important, particularly for younger people that might be stretching a little bit to get into their first home. In addition to that, which I know is very important for the younger generation and the first home buyer generation, is energy efficiency. So all new homes now that are built have to meet 7-star energy compliance. And when you're moving into an established property, there might not be any insulation in the walls. Who knows? So there's some massive benefits of your first home being something that you build.
Being in Melbourne, I definitely live in a very cold house with not enough insulation. So that sounds like a dream.
Yeah, I think all of us that have done the shared house part of our lives have felt that at some point. So yeah, when you move into a brand new home, it's like luxury.
Does location play a big factor in established versus new?
It absolutely does. And the great thing about building a new home is you have a lot of choice around location, probably a lot more than people actually realize when they first start looking. So say, for example, that you want to live around a big population centre that already has a lot of infrastructure in place, a lot of schooling. There are those options. So just in Victoria, throwing out a couple of areas that potentially meet that criteria, potentially a Geelong. Best thing about Geelong, you're also 15 minutes from the Great Ocean Road and Torquay Beach as well, which is pretty awesome. Or potentially a Werribee if you're looking further or closer into Melbourne, I should say. Alternatively, if you want to potentially be a little bit more aggressive with your approach and look at it potentially a bit more as a longer term capital growth opportunity, then there's opportunities in growth corridors as well, or newer suburbs where there may not be all the infrastructure in place right now, but there's the potential that over a long period of time for that growth to occur. So there's a multitude of options. It doesn't just mean that you're in a brand new suburb with nothing around it. That's absolutely not the case.
What does growth corridor actually mean? I hear that term thrown around quite a bit on social media.
Yeah. So for me, it means a suburb or a corridor where there's future infrastructure planned.
So things like roads, schools, hospitals, maybe business parks, activity centres of the like. So there's various locations where that's happening around Victoria and WA at present. And if you get the right advice and you speak to the right people, you can identify these corridors before they have the infrastructure in place and potentially take advantage of a lower market price right now,
with hopefully the prospect of some longer term growth.
Sounds like there's lots of good options there.
Absolutely.
Why is it important to focus on just getting into the market rather than waiting for the perfect home or the perfect time?
Yeah, I think once people arrive at that thought in their mind where they're ready to take that step, it's really important to start planning. As the old saying goes, it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. And the thing is, you never really know that you've reached a peak or trough in the market until it's already happened. So it's important to take action sooner rather than later. And as we've talked about, your first home doesn't have to be your forever home. And there are some really great quality, fantastic options you can look at through a builder to still purchase a fantastic home that maybe is your launch pad into your future forever home.
Definitely not about trying to time the market. It's a very unwise decision, but it's about what's suitable for you now. So that's why it's really important for those particular customers to sit down with the broker to work out what their borrowing capacity is now and get into the market as soon as possible.
I feel like comparison culture is really hard on social media at the moment, where you see lots of people renovating these beautiful 5-bedroom, 2-story homes and it looks lovely. But personally, my first home, I bought an apartment. That was a 2-bedroom apartment and it was never going to be a forever home, but it was a great way to just get started and see what the process was like and to just actually, have time in the market.
Get the foot in the door.
Yeah. What are your top tips for saving and borrowing smarter in today's market, Chris?
I think the major step is essentially sitting down and actually understanding where your money's going. So where your outgoings are going. And look, you can do that on your own. There's various bank tools that are available, to help you with budgeting, etc. But if you're still not sure how to actually approach that, again, that's where a trusted advisor like a broker can come into the mix. They'll get you finance fit by sitting down with you, determining where your outgoings are going. Because the amount of times that we see that the incidental spend around Uber Eats, the
Subscriptions, it's
subscriptions,
so easy.
streaming services, etc. People don't realise where the spend's going until they actually sit down and actually micromanage it through it. Then it's really important to then set a goal, either a short-term goal to actually get the behaviours right and instilled. Once that's underway, then you can actually determine what the steps are from there around what that purchase price needs to look like, and that broker will actually work that through with you. It's really important.
It's so important to remember it's not forever as well. I think sometimes it can feel really daunting when you have to get into savings mode to think it might be like this forever and you'll always have to budget. But it can also be a shorter term thing where you save really hard for a year to save your deposit and then you can kind of step off the brakes a little bit.
Yeah. I think really it's probably good to actually set a budget for at least an incremental period of like a quarter or something to get a little bit of a feel for it. If it needs to adjust, then adjust, but it needs to be adjusted for the right reasons, not because you want another streaming service.
Yes.
So it's really important to actually engage the right experts around that sort of stuff as well.
But such a good point to actually get comfortable with what you're spending and really understand where everything is going, because it is really, really easy in today's world for all those things to just keep creeping up so quickly.
100%.
Tyler, do you have any customer stories where a buyer surprised themselves by getting into the market despite today's pressures?
One that really has stuck with me is we had a Homebuyer Centre customer and she was a single mother, but also a registered nurse. And she was actually doing a lot of overtime hours. So her earning was quite good, and gave her the borrowing capacity to be able to get into the market. However, she didn't have the right deposit saved at this point in time. And through some assistance with Resolve, we were able to get her home and land package locked in early. So her price was secure and she knew exactly what she was working to and had that security. And then was able to save up over a period of time to meet those deposit requirements and then take advantage of that package that she'd actually locked in early. So that was just one great story. And we're really, really happy for that individual that she was able to do that and has now started to build some equity as opposed to saving and then coming back to us, and potentially, prices have gone up and things like that. So that's one that really sticks with me, but there's heaps of those. There's hundreds of them every year. But
I love that that's even an option that you can lock that in and then save for your deposit. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
The scenario that we've actually recently encountered was one of the brokers actually had a single parent with 2 kids, was finding it really difficult to find a lender with any appetite. They had quite a complex scenario. So they were on casual wages, studying as well, first home buyer. So it had everything sort of, around the edges to try and make it a little bit difficult. The broker didn't give up. So she went through and found, based on the client's needs and the outcomes that they were looking for, has actually successfully found by using the schemes and also finding the right lender with the appetite around that particular casual employment. And it's all been formally approved. The sheer delight in that customer and those kids meant the whole family were in tears when the broker told them. So that's what it's all about for us, is actually seeing that successful outcome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Getting into your first home can seem very scary if you listen to too many of the media headlines, but as we've said today, there are different ways to get in. You can chat to a Homebuyer Centre consultant about building a home and different options and areas. You can chat to someone from Resolve Finance about your borrowing options and all the different things that you can do there. But I think we've kind of summarised that there are ways to do it. If you're feeling a little bit disheartened, there are different pathways. Thanks so much for joining me, Chris and Tyler.
Thanks for having us, Tash.
In the next episode, we are going to talk all about turning policy into property with the new government initiatives. This information does not consider your personal needs and financial circumstances, and you should consider whether it is appropriate for you. Lender terms and conditions apply and may vary. All financial services provided by Resolve Financial Solutions Pty Ltd, trading as Resolve Finance, ABN 65079 545 378. Australian credit license number 385487. The building practitioner is ABN Group Pty Ltd, trading as Homebuyer Centre